been a while, and I remember I told you that you are super interesting and you should get on as many other podcasts as possible. I'm fairly certain that I told you this in one because you're an extremely interesting person, and so I'm excited to do it again.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. And you did absolutely say that because I remember you telling me that, and I said, okay, why not? I guess I've been doing it ever since. So.
Really cool. Before we get started with all the topics, I do this now to introduce us guests to the audience. For the few people that haven't seen your stuff, that haven't seen your first episode together, give us some overview of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Sure. So for those that don't know me, my name is Adrian Morris. I've been in Bitcoin since 2012. I've had a very interesting Bitcoin journey. I don't know if we need to get into that right now, but long story short, I'm a Bitcoin investor. I am also a strategy investor. I have some positions in other treasury companies as well. I'm also very, very bullish on AI and the transformative effect it can have on the world. I do have a day job still, even though Bitcoin has been very, very good to me and my investments have been good to me. I still work because I think that someone should keep working and should keep informed and should keep themselves in the market as long as possible. So yeah, that's just me in a nutshell.
That's interesting because like there's a lot of Bitcoiners actually out there that say like, I really wanna at the earliest moment get out of my day job. I mean, I guess it also depends how much do you like your day job and if it's something that you actually enjoy. But do you think about those, like, do you have a number in your head where like at that point I just like want to venture into something else?
Well, what's ironic about that is I hit my number a while ago, and then I set another number and I hit that a while ago. So the reason why I work right now is not because I'm trying to get rich or anything like that. I think that we are in a position or we're in a time in society right now, a time in economy, and a time with technology where if you leave the workplace for any extended period of time, you could be quickly made irrelevant if you try to enter back in. And it's not just about the dollar amount in that case. If you think about how do you do anything in life, you have to keep yourself relevant. And I don't mean like in terms of like coverage or anything like that. You have to keep your skills relevant. You have to stay abreast of what changes are coming. And I think that the best way for me to have a multifaceted view is doing things that are, involving Bitcoin, involving strategy, involving purely investment, options trading, things of that nature, but also having my foot in the door and my ears to the ground in changes that are going on in the modern workplace. I do think I'm going to hit a point where I decide to fully pivot out, where I maybe go into looking at options trading as a full-time career. I've contemplated getting my Series 65 certifications. I've contemplated a few other things, but I think that the main reason why I still work is, one, to your point, I like what I do. What I do is heavily involved in data. It's heavily involved in AI, just in the way that I execute what I do. I use a lot of AI tools, and I help my clients onboard a lot of AI tools. So in my work, I'm staying in sync with all the changes that are going on in the workplace. So that's kind of the main reason why I haven't left. If I was something like and this is not me disparaging any particular profession, if I was like a CPA, or if I was I don't want to say analyst, or just an analyst or something like that, I probably would have said to myself, it's time to move on. But since I work on projects that help clients onboard new systems and create data warehouses and create data lakes, ironically enough, the emergence of AI and my work has kind of gone like this. So it's allowed me to scale up the amount of work I can do. It's allowed me to scale up my income. It's allowed me to diversify my client base. So ironically enough, all of my work from Bitcoin and AI and talking about all that stuff is now informing what I do on my day-to-day job, because there's two things that I hear almost on a weekly basis. Someone asks me about a new AI tool from one of my clients, or they ask me about Bitcoin because some of them know I'm involved in Bitcoin.
That's super interesting. And I think I truly think that in the new world that's coming up in the next 50 years, if you want to stay relevant and you want to stay on top of it, you have to study two things, and that's AI and Bitcoin. Like those are, if you study anything and you aren't aware of AI and Bitcoin, it's probably a good idea to study both of them as deeply as possible.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that. And the thing about it is, even though I've reached a certain even though I've reached a certain level, if you're a Bitcoiner just like I am, there's nothing wrong with more Bitcoin. So if most of my income goes towards my investments, I have deliberately not created more expenses. I've deliberately not, for instance, I haven't bought a home yet. People think I'm crazy for that, but I haven't bought a home yet. I still drive the same car that I've been driving for the last 8 years now. And before that, I drove a car for 12 years. I do, splurge on things like technology because I'm a technology guy, but by and large, it's not a large outflow of capital. So really what I'm working to right now is I'm just accumulating more and more Bitcoin. I'm accumulating in larger positions in certain companies like NVIDIA and Strategy and so on and so forth. Because one, doing that allows me to trade options and gain more income that way. And two, just as you pointed out, I think AI and Bitcoin are going to be the two largest trends that are going to be going in the next several decades, as well as probably getting into robotics. And then after robotics, I think the next big trend is going to be changes to material engineering, either through nanotechnology, femtotechnology, or something like that. I think materials engineering is going to have a very, very big boom as well in the later part of the century. And by that time, will I be old? Of course, but I still want to be in a position where I can live a comfortable life. And I'm just kind of looking towards that and saying to myself, how do I position myself best for that? And retiring two and a half, 3 decades before the average retirement age doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. So I just think that it makes sense to keep going for as long as I can go, because the object in motion stays in motion. And much like with money, if you keep your money moving, it's going to keep growing. So that's just the view I have.
It's also the question of like, what would we do if you're retired? Because I've not done it yet. I'm 26. I've basically maybe if you call it relaxation till I'm 17 years old, because I've not done a lot till I was 17 years old. But since then, I was always working and school. And then when I was working, I did a lot of other projects too. So I always had like 2-3 things going on. And this has been true up until now. And so I don't have an experience in just having a year where you don't do anything. But I imagine it being super freaking boring. Like what are you doing? Like sitting on the beach? I get bored sitting on the beach for like even 3 days. But I might not be the normal person.
No, so I think that even if I were to, so let's define retirement, right? Because I think that also helps. I don't think you and I are at the age where we can say we are retired. We don't work. We just sit around, we have our hobbies that we're doing for the next 40, 50, 60, 70 years. I don't think that works. Because to your point, you're going to get bored very, very quickly. And I don't know, I just have a theory, and I kind of think this way because of my father. So my father's 80 years old and he still works. He still consults, he still travels, he still does things. And his mindset, and this could be because he's from a much older generation, he had me older in life, is that you should keep working until you can't. Yes, you should take vacations. Yes, you should enjoy life. But what keeps you going is having a purpose. So whether that purpose is through your profession, your job, or through podcasting and investing, or whatever it is, you need a purpose, right? So I think that we should draw a distinction between retirement and having no purpose. I think you can retire but still have a purpose, right? So if I were to stop working in the terms of like consulting and what I'm doing right now, I would probably pivot entirely over to investing, like full time, go full bore with that, work the same amount of time with that. I would probably put out a whole lot more content. I would probably work on writing a book. I would probably work on doing a lot more in-depth analysis on some of the things that we see in the market. So I would still be working. I'm just not getting like, the traditional biweekly or monthly paycheck when I issue an invoice to a client, right? So yeah, I don't think I could ever retire per se, in a sense that I don't have anything that I'm doing in terms of a purpose. But do I see myself, at some point here pivoting away from what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis? Yes, I do think that's coming. It's just a matter of when. But then again, even with what I'm doing right now, I'm looking for ways to grow it and scale it. I'm looking to build applications. I'm looking to build software platforms. I'm working with individuals on that. So who knows where that can lead me? That can lead me to an entirely different thing in the next 5-10 years. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever just stop. I'm with you. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. No.
There are, and I tried to find it next to you talking about, I found some interesting studies and some graphs that are looked at when you compare how long it takes for someone after retirement to be actually dead. And I think there's a real correlation, because if you've worked like 40, 50 years and all of a sudden the one purpose that gets you out of bed is gone, you probably, like, it's not there's a good chance you develop bad habits, and there's a good chance you lose your whole purpose in life. And this can be deadly to someone. This mental, small degrading of the mind and the body, this is deadly. And it is something I think we should be well aware of, and especially if you're older. Like I've seen it with my two granddads, and one is already dead and one is still alive, similar age, and the other one just worked in his carpenter shop, like not for sale, like he just did things for the family. He was always like doing things with his hands, and he's still doing it to this day. Of course, he has like the normal issues with his age, but it's fascinating to see that people that hold on to work or just do the work on a voluntary basis and do less of it. This kind of keeps you alive.
It does, and that's kind of why I said the object in motion stays in motion. It works for physics, and I think it works for life as well. If, to your point, you're working for 40, 50 years and then you just stop and that purpose is gone, unless you replace it with something, it's very, very easy for you to either develop bad habits, start breaking down further, mentally, physically, perhaps even emotionally. And then death can be knocking on your door fairly, fairly quickly. So that's part of the reason why I'm still, I'm not doing it because I have a need for money. I'm doing it because I like it, and I'm doing it because it gives me a purpose, and it's something that I can continuously grow and find ways to challenge myself. If anything, what's ironic about it is that my investments have allowed a level of stress to be taken off of the work that I do. And it's freed up my mind. It's allowed me to take more risks. It's allowed me to think outside the box more. I'm already a very outside the box thinker, but once I removed the reality of, if I don't get a paycheck for the next 6, 9, 12 months, I'm in trouble, it freed me up, and it allowed me to do things that I hadn't considered and take things in a direction I hadn't considered. And AI has been a big part of that, because when ChatGPT first came out, I was one of the people, I think, that was willing to be an early adopter, even though it wasn't very good. And I've been watching its progression ever since. And I kind of steeped myself in it from the time it came out. And that's because before ChatGPT, I was already in message boards and I was already following the trends. So when it happened, I wasn't surprised by it. But I wouldn't have had the time to do that if I didn't have the leeway that my investments gave me. So I did actually take like a month, 1 or 3 months off work, where I was just like diving into things before I found another client. And by the time 2022 came around, and we were just coming out of COVID, and hiring was starting to pick back up a little bit more, and companies were looking to broaden and implement new systems and so on and so forth, I had already developed an entirely new model with entirely new methodologies for doing what I was doing. And I did it with early models of GPT helping me do it. So ironically enough, my investments allowed me to take some time off, which has now increased my income, which is now increasing my investments. So so if you want to talk about reflexivity, that is one reflexive relationship right there. So there's value in taking time off, but notice how I didn't stop. I took some time to reassess, and I took some time to refocus, but I didn't take the time to stop. So I think what you're saying is very true. And I've seen similar studies that if you stop, that's very dangerous. I don't care how old you are. If you were worth $1 billion and you just stopped right now, I guarantee you by the time you're 40, you're going to look a lot older. If you just stopped, versus if you kept going and you found a new purpose, launched your own studio, launched an investment fund, something. You would have to find a purpose, and I think that's very, very important.
I love that, and I also love the perspective of if you have Bitcoin as your safe haven, you have something that you can rely on for, let's say, 2 months, 5 months, maybe years. Maybe you have a stack where you're like, potentially I can live off that, and you still have positive cash flow. But with that stack in the back of your mind, you go a lot more relaxed to work. You go a lot more like you have the power to work on your own timeline. And this is something I just had to really hard discover the last 2 years, where a lot of people try to press their timeline on you. They're like, oh, I need this till then. I want this done, but then, we have to meet till then. Otherwise this. And I'm like, no, this is my timeline. If you want to work with me, that's the thing. And we can work together in that way. And I think this is only possible if you have something like Bitcoin. If you have paycheck to paycheck, you're dependent on that job, you are way more likely to just work on someone else's timeline, which is very deadly also. But I did not even want to get into this topic, but I think it's a very fascinating one, getting into the power of Bitcoin that is not directly seen, just to have that as a cushion in your life.
Well, so the ironic thing about it is that Bitcoin has kind of fueled everything for me. So I'm fortunate that I got in early, but I sold when I shouldn't have. If I kept what I had originally, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. It would be something different, and I definitely would have probably stopped working, and I'll be doing something else. I'll probably be a full-time investor. I'll probably be a full-time financial advisor. I would have pivoted to an entirely new career at this point, or I'd have been maybe a full-time podcaster or something. I don't know. I would have if I had kept that capital and the amount it was, I definitely would have done something different. But I say that to say this. My Bitcoin holdings are what I leverage to invest in strategy, to invest in NVIDIA, to invest in my position that I used to have in Tesla, so on and so forth. I took out loans against my Bitcoin to invest, and those investments grew. I paid back the loans, so now I have those investments and I still have my Bitcoin. The reason why I was able to take time off and refocus is because I had saved money. I had the investments. I was actively investing. I was watching that grow. So watching that grow, it allowed me to be a little bit more liberal with the savings that I had. And it allowed me to, for instance, I spent tens of thousands of dollars on computers. I bought a whole bunch of computers, like a laptop, 2 servers, a workstation. Now that seems excessive to some people, but in my job with what I do, having the ability to create very, very complex scripts, and in some cases even experiment with algorithms and experiment with the different things that I can do, because I'm working with data cleansing, and I'm working with implementing new systems, and I'm working with creating data lakes and so on and so forth. It made sense for me to make that investment because I'm an independent consultant and that's what I do. But I could not have done that without Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has facilitated, ironically enough, more comfort in my personal life and more viability, scalability, and impact in my professional life. So I'm very, very grateful to Bitcoin. And of course, I'm a strong believer in Bitcoin. And I think that, even though people say that we're still early, we really are. A lot of people have heard about Bitcoin, but they don't own it yet. We have yet to hit that real inflection point where people really catch on and like at a massive level. And then Lord knows where it's going to go. I think that, Saylor's right. I think that a lot of people in the space are right, that we're going to go to 250, 500,000, $1 million, multi-million dollars of coins in the next, several decades. And it's my job to maintain my holdings until then and grow them wherever I can until then. Because at some point, is going to get to a level where you spend $1,000 and it gets you what, a few sats, and at that point it's kind of like, is it worth it to keep buying, or do you want to live off of what you have? You don't want to sell it, but you want to live off of it. And I think that's where we're all heading to.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.